Quote, what are we, Portugal? Breaking news. We have preliminary word that U.S. Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner has resigned on the order of the president. We just got word that President Obama went to his 16-member cabinet to ask who is responsible for financing so much of the country's debt with extremely short-term loans. And as a result of this meeting, Tim Geithner, who assumed office on January 26, 2009, has resigned his position as U.S. Secretary of the Treasury. No word yet on who is set to replace Geithner. We're still 30 minutes away from the opening bell in the stock market. Bob, what are you seeing so far?
What's interesting is that before the market's even open, the yield on benchmark treasuries in the futures market has soared to 10.5%. Gold has jumped 25% in less than 2 hours and now trades at $1,875 per ounce. Silver is now trading at an all-time high of $60 an ounce. Oil prices are soaring as well, now trading at an all-time high of $125 per barrel.
We're now getting reports that crowds are gathering at the intersection of Wall Street and Broadway in Lower Manhattan, waiting to see if the Fed will issue a statement about how the government plans to handle the situation. The guys in the studio are saying that internet rumors have begun to spread that the stock market will not open for the day and that banks will close early. We'll bring you another update as soon as we have more information. The chairman of the New York Stock Exchange has just announced a delay in the opening of the United States stock market. We're also getting word that banks up and down the East Coast, most of which have only been open for 10 minutes, are reporting lines around the block and a run on their available cash. Angry customers and many branches are demanding withdrawals and access to safety deposit boxes. Apparently, many of these folks are being turned away. In fact, our Albany affiliate has reported that 2 men were arrested just minutes ago after pushing past a bank security guard who was refusing to let the men access their own safety deposit boxes. From our affiliate in Trenton, New Jersey, we're also getting several reports of panic buying at grocery stores and convenience stores. The shelves are quickly being emptied of food and water. We're going to go live now to Trenton. Okay, hold just one moment. We're now getting an update. Okay, we just have word from the Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke has announced that all U.S. banks will close today at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and will remain closed for the remainder of the day so that the government can get a handle on the U.S. Treasury market and the U.S. dollar. Bernanke has urged citizens not to panic, but clearly that's exactly what is happening right now. And I have to tell you, it's actually pretty frightening. The White House has just issued a statement claiming that our allies have pledged to help stop the run on U.S. Treasuries in order to prevent unnecessary losses. Bob, what do you think led to this stunning reversal from what we heard earlier?
Well, like you said, this contradicts what we heard earlier from an inside source who told us that German Chancellor Angela Merkel explained to President Obama that while she would love to help, there's simply nothing her nation nor any other allied nation can do. We can only guess that perhaps the president has found a way to persuade the Germans to help, or this is some sort of stall tactic simply to buy time in order to look for an alternative solution.
We've received word from the White House that President Obama is set to address the nation at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Meanwhile, our affiliates in the tri-state area are continuing to report panicked citizens and civil unrest. In Hartford, Connecticut, just minutes ago, a 44-year-old father of 3 was arrested for pointing a gun at a gas station attendant, demanding that he be allowed to fill up his family's SUV despite the fact that he had no cash to pay for it. I hate to say it, Bob, but I think it's going to get pretty ugly unless the president can do something to stabilize the situation.
And he better do it fast, too.
We just received word that the New York Stock Exchange chairman has announced that for the first time since 9/11, the stock market will observe, quote, a full day of unscheduled closure in order to allow the U.S. government to regain stability in the U.S. Treasury market. Shareholders will not be allowed to buy or sell equity shares until the markets reopen. Access to money market accounts will also be delayed until the markets reopen, meaning most Americans will have no access whatsoever to their own savings. In the minutes since Chairman Carter's announcement, futures for U.S. Treasuries have received no bids, meaning trading in U.S. government debt has essentially come to a complete halt. As a result, Gold has nearly shot up to more than $2,250 per ounce. Silver has jumped to $85 per ounce, and oil has skyrocketed to $145 per barrel. We have just received word that the heads of America's 3 largest credit card companies have announced that they will halt transactions for a minimum of 24 hours, effective immediately, until the government can regain control of the Treasury market. Obviously, this is going to put a major strain on folks who were hoping to go about their regular business today. Banks have already closed, most ATMs are empty, and now the credit card companies are halting transactions for at least 24 hours. We also now have reports from gas stations up and down the East Coast. Almost every station we checked in with is reporting that they are completely sold out of gas, and with no deliveries scheduled until the banks reopen. We did hear about one filling station near Allentown, Pennsylvania, with gasoline remaining. Just a few minutes ago, one person in line told us on the phone that there were at least 50 cars in front of him. We've also checked in again with convenience stores and grocery stores, and we are getting reports that most shelves are empty as panicked shoppers fight over what little remains. And there's more bad news as well. We have also heard a rumor, I repeat, right now it is just a rumor, that Freedom cards, these are the cards that are used by low-income folks for the government's assisted food program, are no longer working. As I mentioned earlier, ATMs have almost all been completely emptied as far as we can tell, and U.S. citizens face the reality of at least several days of uncertainty with no access to their own money. In the tri-state area, several of the major retail stores have announced that stores will remain open until 5 p.m. Eastern Time, but for cash purchases only. Only minutes ago, President Barack Obama addressed the nation from the East Room of the White House. To summarize his remarks, he said that he has instructed our financial regulators to close our markets and banks today in order to prevent any unnecessary losses and unwanted volatility. He went on to say today's events were, quote, a tremendous overreaction to a glitch in our Treasury funding system and to a minor reluctance on the part of our long-term partners to further invest in the U.S. Treasury auctions. He said he has been in touch with a dozen world leaders who believe that a reasonable solution to these problems can be quickly reached. He's asked the Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke to put together a restructuring plan for our Treasury obligations. And lastly, he has indicated that the U.S. would consider liquidating assets such as oil, gold, and land. Bob, you've been in this business for several decades. What do you make of the president's remarks?
Well, I can't believe it's gotten so bad that we'll sell Guam. I mean, that's basically what the president just said. I quote, "We will sell non-core U.S. assets, such as our territories in the Caribbean Basin, the South Pacific, and even certain areas above the Arctic Circle in Alaska," end quote. And overall, I felt that the administration is really trying to cast blame. The president is trying to blame Bush and Geithner for everything, as if nobody else knew what was going on.
The president also seemed to blame speculators, saying, America will not default on its debts. We will not devalue our dollar to appease global speculators. There's no doubt that today's difficulties in the Treasury market have been compounded by greedy speculators. These people care nothing about the welfare of the American people. They are the parasites of the world's financial markets, living off the misery of others. And he closed with the following warning to Wall Street. Let this be a warning to everyone on Wall Street. This is not the time to sell America short. If you seek to make a profit on the short-term funding crisis, you will be pursued and punished with all of the powers at my disposal." End quote. And as a follow-up to the president's address, the White House has just issued a statement saying that until further notice, the White House will not answer any questions about the possibility of asset sales. The statement explained that such information might disrupt the process now underway. The White House statement also said specifically that they would not discuss how much gold is available to sell at Fort Knox or from the vault at the New York Fed in Manhattan. Finally, the statement from the White House contained an announcement that all financial markets and banks will remain closed for the remainder of the week and will reopen in 6 days' time on Monday, December 10th. This is truly an historic event.
And we have no idea how this is going to play out for a nation that appears to have gone in less than 24 hours from the world's only superpower to a desperate debtor nation which right now can't even guarantee the safety and well-being of its own citizens.
We're getting more reports of major shortages and panicked buying at grocery stores and convenience stores around the country. For another look at this developing story, let's go to Jim in D.C. Jim, what are you seeing?
Well, within about a 20-mile radius, every gas station and grocery store have been completely just emptied. Looting and protests are now taking place just a few blocks away. And now we're hearing that the same is happening in Detroit, Los Angeles, Dallas, and several other major cities that have large, poor populations. What these folks realize is that it's going to be very difficult to survive this next week. To be honest, even many middle-class and wealthy citizens have been caught completely off guard by this crisis. Without access to credit cards or cash in the bank, it's going to be a very long and chaotic week.
It's really scary out there. We just heard that about 10 minutes ago, the National Guard had to intervene as a mob here in the city was throwing stones and hurling anti-Semitic slurs at ex-Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner as he attempted to leave his office. We can only hope that people remain calm enough for the president and his cabinet to get a handle on this situation as quickly as possible. The Chinese President Hu Jintao has just issued a statement on the steps of the National People's Congressional Building in Beijing. His statement read, "While we deeply regret the fact that there is no longer a market for U.S. treasuries, as the United States' largest creditor, there is simply nothing China can do to help solve this problem. Jintao has urged Americans to remain calm and to work together to get through this crisis." President Jintao also promised that we will not allow the financial crisis in America to become a humanitarian crisis as well. We are not the enemies of the American people. Their enemies are their own elected politicians and leaders who have allowed this financial crisis to occur. Jintao announced aid packages of food, water, and medicine, which the Chinese military will begin delivering to the areas of the United States that have been hardest hit by the crisis. This really is amazing when you think about it. When most people went to bed last night, the last thing any of us could have imagined was that within 24 hours, the financial crisis would hit the United States so hard that it would cause the Chinese government to promise humanitarian relief. But unfortunately, that is the reality right now. We have an update on some of the numbers from today.
With the country in chaos, the Treasury yield has climbed to 25%. Now, what that means is, if the U.S. government wants to borrow money, they now have to pay 25% interest. It's incredible. Over the course of the day, the U.S. dollar has now lost half its value against the Chinese yuan and the Swiss franc. I repeat, that's just today, one day. Gold is now trading at $4,100 per ounce, silver is at $160, and oil is trading at an all-time high of nearly $200 per barrel.
And we are told that a gallon of gas, although impossible to buy at any filling station, is trading on the black market for $50 a gallon. We do have one important update to bring to you. Just a few minutes ago, the Canadian government announced that they are, effective immediately, implementing a visa program for travelers embarking from the United States and U.S. territories. In other words, for the first time in more than 100 years, the border between the U.S. and Canada is officially closed in an effort to stem the massive number of Americans spilling into Canada. This just caps what has been a truly historic and catastrophic day for the United States. And the scary part is no one really knows what is going to happen next. President Obama and the White House staff say they are going to take care of the situation as quickly as possible, but frankly, from the people we've talked to in the streets, confidence in our leadership is low. Again, it has been less than 12 hours since the collapse of the U.S. Treasury market, and already banks are out of cash. Credit card companies have essentially ceased operations. Food store shelves have been emptied, as have gas stations. And frankly, no one has any idea when or if we'll be able to return to normalcy in America. It's pretty clear that even in this crisis, if it can be resolved in the next few months, our nation will never quite be the same again.